Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to add to this file that I've been working on here and just add a couple more words and whatnot and some decoration and things. So what I'm going to do is I am going to add a new layer by going to the layer menu down the lower left-hand corner, and I'm going to tap the plus sign. And when I do that, now you see there's layer 4. It says it's layer 4. You can change the name if you want to just by tapping it. That's not essential. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. And now since that layer is on top, it's the one highest, that's the first one you're going to see, and anything underneath it's going to fall below it. So I'm going to do is I'm going to change the colors by I'm going to click pink on the right hand side and then check my tip, make sure it's the same one, and then I'm just going to start drawing my next word. So I got awesome graffiti. Why? I don't know, right? So looking at this, you see layer number 4 and layer number 3 are there, right? I'm gonna actually, I don't really like where layer number 3 is, the graffiti. I want to kind of move it. I wanna move it, transform it, put it in a different place on the screen because I just really don't like where it's located right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tap on that layer because that's the one I wanna change. And then I'm going to tap on the edit menu up in the upper left hand corner, and then you see a list of options. You have copy, you got cut, copy, merge, paste, all of the basic stuff. But what we're looking at is down there at the bottom, the transform layer. I'm going to tap that. When you do, it opens up all these options. I always just select the whole move, scale, and rotate option because it lets you do everything. And now what you can do is you can move whatever's in that layer exactly where you want it, resize it, and then set it. And when you got it where you want it, you just go ahead and hit apply. Okay? So if I want to move the awesome text, then I tap on layer number 4 and I do the same. So edit, transform layer, move, scale, rotate, and I'm going to move that just slightly because I want a little bit of overlap but not complete. So something like that. If I want to see what it looks like with the awesome underneath the graffiti word, then what I would do is tap the layer menu, and again I would, those 3 lines that are off to the right hand side of the preview, if you hold that, it comes up off the screen, and then you can drag it down to see if that changes things. There's a lot of trial and error here, so I would try things out, see if you like it better, and if you don't, you can always go back, right? And there we go. If I decided that I wanted both things to move together, then there is a little chain link next to each layer preview. If you tap that, then those 2 things are connected now, and when you transform them together. They're linked. So, and when you got them where you want, you go ahead and hit apply. To unlink them, you would go back to your layer menu and just tap the chain, and now they're individual again, they're separated. So what you can do now is then you can add other details, right? So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to add in a box. So I'm gonna hit the plus button, create a new layer, and to add in basic shapes, what I would do is I would use the selection tool, which is on the upper left hand corner. If we tap that, you'll see that there are a list of different options: a box, an oval, 2 different lassos, a magic wand, and this thing that looks like a blob. Those tools are also at the bottom. If you look along the bottom of the screen, you see them there too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the box, and then what I'm going to do is drag a box, create a box across the screen. And you see this crazy looking line. It's the selection line. Some people call it the marching ants line. With that now, you've told the iPad that you only want to work in that window. You don't want to work anywhere else, just there. So whatever you do to this thing, it's only going to affect what's in that central box there. So if I select blue, I pick blue just for the heck of it, and I'm going to use the spray can. Now, no matter where I touch on the screen, the blue only gets added inside that box. That's it. So now you have it, you created a box, you have it sitting there, and you can move it and do all kinds of fun stuff with it. But before you do that, what you got to do is you have to deselect the box. You got to get rid of that selection line. So to do that, you go to the select menu, and everything in this menu, this drop down, controls or has something to do with that line that you see moving. So if you tap deselect, now it's gone. Now you can go back to edit, hit transform, move, scale, rotate, turn it on its side if you want. You can also go edit, and there's a distort option at the very bottom, right? So that gives you some points to grab and control. When you do that, you start to kind of skew the box one way or another. You can create a sense of depth that way if you wanted to, or just transform it into more of an odd shape and hit apply. It's covering my text, so that's kind of a distraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and drop that underneath everything, and it disappears in the background. So now it's background detail. You could do the same thing for a circle or oval. You just choose instead the circle, oval tool, and then isolate the screen there. And this is what's going to happen. I didn't create a new layer, so this is going to be a problem for me, but I want to illustrate why. So I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to select green and then the spray paint, and I'm going to shade that in. Hit deselect. So I got another shape. Here's the problem. If I go, let's just say I want my green circle to move, but I want the blue square to stay where it is. If I go edit, transform now, they're both moving together. That's because they are on the same layer together. So because they're on the same layer, they're essentially married and connected. You can't do anything to one without it affecting the other. So the way to prevent that from happening, going back, is to make sure that you add a new layer every time you add, every time you add a new shape or new item. So here we go, we're gonna add the circle, there it is. I'm gonna hit deselect to get rid of it. You can see it in the layer menu now. So you go edit, transform, move, scale, rotate, and now you can move it. It's free to move on its own. Apply. To make a triangle, you're going to use the lasso, but you're going to use what they call the linear lasso. That's the second lasso. When I tap that, I'm going to add a layer, and now when you put your finger on the screen and trace, you'll get a line, a straight line, and the next time another straight line, and then you come back and connect it. So choosing a spray paint, the spray can again, I'll fill this with dark green and paint it. Now I have a triangle, and I hit deselect. I can then go back and I can transform, move, scale, rotate, resize it, or distort it if I want, to kind of warp it however you like, until you get what you're looking for, what kind of shape you're looking for. So essentially here I have several different layers, and because they're all separated, you could do whatever you want to any one of them, and it doesn't affect the other ones, which is what you want. I'm going to turn these off right now because they're distracting. You can also use this lasso tool to create basic block shapes. So let me turn this off and that off. And I'm going to add a layer. I'm going to drag it up to the top so it's not in the way. And now what I'm going to do here is just make the letter M using the lasso tool. So there's my first line. Okay, I got my letter M, and I'll come back with blue, and I'm going to spray paint that. There you go. So if you're looking for more blocky letters, that's the way to do it. So, and of course, deselect, then you can transform it, move, scale, rotate, size it however you want, place it wherever you want, and it's there. You're in business. So let me turn that off, though, temporarily. I'm going to bring these back on. So I have these two letters, or these two words, and looking at it, I'm going to leave the pink awesome as it is, but I kind of want to change the color of my graffiti text, right? So you could do it the old school way, which is just to try to trace over what you already have with a different color. Or there's a much simpler option if you go to the selection tool, which we've been using, and you look over next to the linear lasso, there's a magic wand, and then there's this blob. They both work very similar. There's just a subtle little difference. So I am going to pick the magic wand. And now what this does is when you tap a color of a pixel, when you tap a pixel, it's going to circle every other pixel that's that color and connected. So if I tap the purple, I got to make sure I'm in that layer first. So layer 3, it's a purple layer, and then I'm going to tap that. You see it's circled everything, right? So it's circled everything in that layer that is purple. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a new layer because I want to keep my purple layer. I don't want to change it. So there's no reason to delete it. There's no reason to change it. I could leave it there and turn it off so it's not distracting me, or I can leave it on if I want, right? It's whatever I want to do with it, but there's no point in deleting it at this point. I don't need to. Because what I want to do is I want to do a color change. I'm going to select green, and then with the spray can, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start spray painting inside. And you see, got a green version of that text. If I wanted to do a gradient where there's a blend of colors, what I could do too is I could choose a second color. And what would be a good one? We'll go with orange, why not? Choose an orange. And then you can, with the spray can, I'm going to shrink the tool down so it covers less area, and I'm going to turn down its opacity so that you're slowly adding color to give you that blend. So, and that creates more of a blend effect if you want that gradient there. So to go ahead and get rid of the selection line, deselect again, and there you go. So you have a two-tone graffiti text. You could do the same thing with your pink lettering. So I'm going to jump up to that layer and grab my magic wand again, tapping pink. But this time, rather than using the spray can to make the gradient, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this thing called the gradient tool, which is on the left-hand side, and it's right there. If you tap that, you got all these different options. They give you a preview. Right now I have it set so that it's going to go from orange to red, but I can change those colors, and to do that, you do that in the color palette. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change it to pink and purple, and I'll show you how to do that. We'll go tap the color palette. You'll see that the color 1 is selected. I'm going to choose pink for that instead of the orange. And then right next to color 1 is color 2. And I'm going to replace the red with purple. And then I'll just tap anywhere on the screen to get rid of it. You'll see in the color palette there's pink and purple. That's what I'm working with, right? And then what happens here is when you put your finger on the screen and you drag, a straight line appears, and what that's doing is it's determining the direction and the length of the gradient. So when I let go, that's what you get. So, and you can go from different directions. The shorter the line, the more rapidly the gradation changes. You can change types. Right now it's going from pink to purple, but you could set it to go from purple to pink to purple again, like this, or like that. You can do a radial blur, which is it's going to go from one color in the middle and then change as it moves away. Or you can explore the other options. But those are ways in which you can change your text and add a little bit more detail and a little bit more excitement to it so that it's not just your one single standard color, right? Because remember, graffiti is all about color. You want a lot of color, right? So let's turn some of this other stuff back on so we get a feel for it. And there you go.